Remember Vice? Remember Buzzfeed? How about the dissident left? All dead, and murder is the case. But who's the real killer? Expert witness Gavin McInnes is with us to spill all the lore. I am James Poulos. It's 0 Hour. Ten years ago this week, Edward Snowden changed American history. But he changed the future too. We're living in it. 1 week before he lifted just a corner of the rug carpeting over our new regime, the one that now has all but replaced the country we knew, Americans tuning in to Real Time with Bill Maher heard a puzzling message from the world to come. Sitting between Obamacare architect Neera Tanden and some third person I no longer remember sat one James Poulos. Bill had steered the conversation toward the possibility of government overreach, and I cautioned the panel that just because the Bush administration had ostensibly shuttered its Total Information Awareness Project didn't mean the military-industrial complex, the intelligence community, or the administrative state weren't still pursuing exactly that. Not for the first time on that panel, I drew some funny faces, and not the haha kind either. But yesterday's riddle is today no laughing matter. In the wake of Snowden's disclosures and others to follow, some of the most vociferous criticism of our government crossing the deep state Rubicon came not from the right, but the left. In the long, often sad 2010s, if you wanted to hear from people mad about malevolent government, angry about corporate corruption, wary of the globalization agenda, and fired up about protecting the little guy, chances were you had to look to the so-called dissident left. I should know. After the financial crisis blew out my hopes of landing a tenure-track job in academic political theory, I'll wait for you to finish laughing, I left the Beltway swamp for the relatively noble and upright world of Hollywood, where, as a disaffected conservative fronting an indie rock band, I was the perfect token right-winger for high-profile new media brands like Vice, Good, Riot, The Huffington Post, and The Young Turks. I worked with them all, and yes, made lots of trendy friends. We were cresting a wave, riding the dragon, speaking our minds. We were the thorn in the side of the increasingly smug and aloof Obama administration, the one that began America's proud tradition of painting rainbow colors on killer robots, tasked to take out those unfortunate souls listed on its so-called disposition matrix. One name that didn't appear on any lists, at least none leaked or otherwise made public, belonged to one of the rising stars in my circle of hot media friends. His name was Michael Hastings. Michael skyrocketed to fame as a real-deal conflict journalist, the kind that made Vice's potentate Shane Smith a very wealthy man. Michael had both the access and the balls to take down Obama's top dog in Afghanistan, General Stanley McChrystal, with a single kill shot of his own. One scorching story in Rolling Stone magazine. I wasn't a part of Michael's inner circle, but I was close enough to see, firsthand, what he had helped achieve. A creative, confident nerve center of anti-establishment politics in the heart of Los Angeles, centered around Oliver Stone and expanding across time zones to include the likes of Glenn Greenwald, who had recommended me as an in-studio guest to the Young Turks before he became an enemy of the state. But Glenn, as you probably know, is still with us, alive and well. And the same, alas, cannot be said of Michael. A scant 12 days after Glenn first published Snowden's bombshells, Michael's Mercedes, with Michael behind the wheel, veered abruptly off the pavement, traveling south on Highland Avenue, just past Melrose, across from Matza Pizzeria, and impacted one of the tall, glamorous palm trees lining the median. The vehicle instantly burst into flames and charred the victim, quote, beyond recognition. This event took place shortly before 4:30 in the morning that dark Tuesday. Buzzfeed chief Ben Smith, who had Michael on payroll, told the press he was shocked and devastated. But words like that couldn't capture the body blow that had caved in the hearts of Michael's friends and loved ones, and swiftly shattered the dissident media scene that he had proven to be the heart of. So began what became the systematic roll-up of the dissident left, eventually sidelining even Bernie Sanders, and transforming the Democrats from a party with a partisan base mobilized against corruption, globalization, and militarization into one where both the elites and the foot soldiers were slavishly devoted to all those once so terrible things. I don't know exactly what happened to Michael that terrible night, but I didn't tell the press when they came calling that I knew where Michael had been before he climbed into his car, agitated but very unsuicidal, and began what he had intended to be a quick trip out of town. I knew the last 2 people he had spoken to before he died, and I knew what he had said to them. I knew something was very wrong, and I knew nobody was ever going to find out what it was. No investigation into Michael's death was forthcoming. His coroner's report was unceremoniously sealed. He had disappeared into a hole as dark and obliviating as any of his country's secret and illegal black sites. And so, in a sense, his country had done the same. I've never spoken publicly about any of these details until now. 10 years of silence can do that to you. The list of people present at the creation of the first political media scene in the age of social media was short in 2013, and the list of those still kicking today is shorter still. There's never been a proper retrospective of just what happened to our government, our media, and our political institutions since Michael Hastings was so quickly removed from the national equation. Even though, with the benefit of hindsight, the strange concurrence of the death of new media and the death of the dissident left goes beyond the realm of the uncanny and into the realm of the suspect. It stinks, not just with the stench of death, but of murder most foul. In just one episode of this show, even this first episode, we can't provide the exhaustive postmortem or autopsy that would do justice to all the victims involved. But we can make a start. And to me, at least, there's no one better to help us do exactly that than Mr. Gavin McInnes. Gavin is simultaneously the most misunderstood and the most canceled man in America. To us, he's the hipster guy who created Vice after playing in punk bands and later started a patriotic men's club called the Proud Boys. To the left, he's the face of hate, a venomous bigot with a personal army he uses to terrorize anyone who stands in his way. Who knows? Maybe he's both. Born in England to Scottish parents, he moved to Canada at a young age and spent his formative years in Montreal before emigrating to New York City in the late 1990s. He has a wife who is Indian American and 3 kids and says his focus these days is pulling down woke culture and pushing up the American family. Less fur babies, he often says, more human ones. Gavin hosts his own show called Get Off My Lawn, which can be found on his network censored.tv. Here he is with us now. Gavin McInnes, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, under the circumstances. Apocalyptic skies in New York. You made it out okay?
Yeah, that was Wednesday was nuts. The whole city was yellow. I've never seen that in my half century on Earth. It was crazy.
Just as the hipster plague finally had left New York, in comes the toxic cloud of Canada.
Yeah, that was the end. But it only lasted for a day.
Much like hipsterism itself. No, in all seriousness, though, you self-identify as a hipster. Is that still valid?
A hipster, a hipster is defined as someone between the ages of 18 and 25 who has an abnormal obsession with pop culture, particularly alternative music and fashion.
And then takes on those characteristics as a badge of identity.
It becomes a self-identifier, like punk or mod or skinhead or any other thing.
And you were the punk guy. You were in punk bands?
I was in punk bands in the 80s, yes.
You got to be in at least 5 in order to really be punk. Is that how it goes?
There was a lot of rules with punk.
Yeah.
Like your Dr. Martens had to be laced a certain way with the parallel threads, and your cufflinks had to be this big, and your motorcycle jacket had to be of a certain thickness, and you had to, your mohawk couldn't have any hair here. It had to be bald here. Lots of rules.
This is like lightning round material. It's like white laces are red, like members only.
Red laces are racist. White laces are peace punk. Yellow laces mean you killed a cop, which couldn't have happened too often.
No, I missed that.
Green, I think, were like eco dudes. It was a very conformist subculture.
And yet a rainbow coalition of sorts,
yeah,
clearly. At least from the ankles down.
Well, it's easier to be a woman now than it was to be a punk then.
Yeah, true.
You just say it.
Yeah, it's one trip to the doctor.
One trip.
You're done. Yeah. It was straight edge?
No.
Not a straight edge.
We used to draw squiggly lines on our hands, and then the center would be gone from the salt of tequila shots. So we were
like
anti-straight
the anti-X.
Yeah.
Yes, on the palms. All right. We are viciously dating ourselves and having fun doing it. You said the death of Cool was back in 2010. That's when the book came out. I'm going to sort of use this to get into the whole gnarly Vice story, which hopefully we can lay out. So Cool died in 2010. Vice went on to some people reached its peak after that.
Yeah.
How did that feel to you watching that unfold?
Well, truthfully, it hurt my feelings. I was very upset. I wanted them to die, literally and figuratively, right after I left.
In that order?
Figuratively first, then literally. I wanted them to have cancer. It was not a good split. I was very bitter. And they started really, like, what happened was I was the content guy, and I wanted there to be this tension between sales and content. And then once I was taken out of the equation, sales could flourish and money could come in, and they started going for the babysitter dollar, the young lady dollar, and they did a really good job and made tons of money, and I was very angry about it.
Did you see at a certain point the imperative, the logical imperative of sales sort of move out of like a cash grab mentality and more toward what ended up being sort of like woke fan service? Like that kind of
I think those are the same thing. I think if you're really into sales, you want young women because no one spends more money than them. And what are young women into? The wokest stuff you could possibly imagine. So the sales team focused the brand more on that stuff. And then I think there was also, at the same time, there was the whole news thing, which I never found interesting. The whole like, let's go to Syria and look at these people who make hash. Like, I don't care.
You didn't like any of that?
I hated all that. I don't like the non-Western world. I think it should sink into the sea.
You wanted the skateboarders in the drained pool somewhere outside of
I only
Albany.
care about the West. If I'm reading an article about a mudslide in Sri Lanka, my eyes roll back in my head. I don't care about them.
Okay.
I don't think anyone does if they're honest with themselves.
Well, I mean, we got this sort of like mini wavelet of surviving conflict journalists over the past couple of months, sort of wistfully looking back on the world that was. And, these are like sort of wars. They were like the kind of wars where like, someone who had done like a 10 or 12 hits on CNN could like go to and befriend warlords and like wear the, wear the bullets and do the thing.
Sit with Malcolm Nance in his giant puffy yellow coat and say, they usually come in threes. Hang on. 1, 2. The problem with war now is we don't even know what's real and what's fake.
That's mission accomplished, right? That's what they want. Speaking of not knowing the difference between real and fake, it seems like the sales team from Vice then like proceeded to move over to become the sales team at Target, if your thesis is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah? Are you a Target shopper for the family?
I'm so confused by all this. So the general like insider take is they have to go woke to borrow money from BlackRock. So taking a 20 billion hit, a 9 billion hit isn't a big deal because you're still in BlackRock's good books, and you have to be in their good books by having ESG, right? You have to have woke stuff.
Right.
But that just doesn't sit right with me. How could a company lose 9 billion, 20 billion and it not be a big deal? And why is it a given that BlackRock, you need to borrow money from BlackRock to survive as a corporation? I don't get the economics of it.
Well, yeah, so it's hard to know whether it's real or just an illusion.
Yeah, what the hell is going on? I personally think it's women in the workforce doing a bad job. And that Bud Light chick was like, let's get Dylan Mulvaney because he's like super popular and we'll kind of de-jock Bud Light. And then she basically just crashed an 18-wheeler into a brick wall with that terrible decision.
I mean, just the pain of seeing like generations of women who hated their fathers for working these like terrible jobs, then ending up working jobs still more terrible than their father would ever have
That's
accepted.
all woke is. It's daddy issues. It's revenge on dad. Smash the patriarchy is smash the patriarch. It's basic Freud. They're just mad at dad.
All right, let's go back to the very origins of Vice.
Okay.
This is your brainchild. You're like kind of Canadian, I guess like really Canadian at the time, and became like somewhat less Canadian. Incredibly Canadian. What was there like a moment? Was there like a moment when this sort of like brand identity descends to you and you say like, this is the thing that there needs to be, or did it just kind of like ooze up?
Well, there was a major moment. We were called Voice of Montreal, and it was a scam. These Haitians were getting money from the government to promote diversity in a 16-page newsprint newspaper. And so we were supposed to write about the Polish parade and the Jewish parade and the Muslim parade. But Sarouche and I, the guy who literally started it, just made it about skateboarding and punk and stuff, and the stuff we wanted to talk about. It was more like a zine, inspired by Jim Goad's zine, Answer Me. there was a lot of really dark stuff at the time too. Like there was Fucked magazine, and I don't know how much I can say. Sewer Cunt was a big magazine at the time. Hate was a magazine. And we were sort of riding that. Sarusha just quit heroin, and he was in a really dark place because he wasn't releasing endorphins anymore. But anyway, that was ticking along, and because it was a welfare scam, they didn't want us to grow. We were like the goose that gave the golden egg. So they were getting money to employ us. They were siphoning it all, and giving us 20% of what they got or whatever the cut they got. And they didn't want us to get marketing stuff. So I hired my buddy Shane Smith that I'd grown up with since we were kids, and I said, dude, we can't grow here. We're stuck at 16 pages and they don't want us to grow. So he came in, he fired the sales girl, and he just started cooking with gas. And then he said, we got to start mailing these out to show people that, we exist. And then we came with this idea. We said, if they don't let us start spending money, you got to spend money to make money. If they don't let us mail out the Voice of Montreal, we're going to quit and then start our own magazine called Vice. I was driving with my buddy who was he owned a tree planting company, Marcus Saunders. And I told him the ultimatum. And he goes, why have an ultimatum? Just do it. And I was 25 at the time. And I thought, when you're a young man, when you're 25, you're still a child. You're still a teenager.
Definitely.
Like the just do it thing.
Now more than ever.
Yeah, we're going solo. Yeah, now more than ever. But back in 95, to say like, yeah, we're done with you and you're not going to sue me. I'm going to change the name from Voice to Vice and you're over. We're doing this ourselves. That was just like such a brave thing to do. And I thought, yeah, why not? So I called Shane and Sarusha and I go, let's call ourselves Vice and just move out. And they did threaten to sue us. We had to pay them like $3,000 a month for a year or something. But that to me was the biggest turning point, was that no more ultimatums. We're doing this ourselves.
And then you go to New York and take the scam to America.
And that you'd think that would be the bigger one in my memory. But that was like, we had an investor who poured in, he gave us $1 million for 25%. It moved us to New York, paid for everything. We were on the 35th Street. We had an entire city block was our office. Okay, half a city block, sorry. It was kind of like the original Glenn Beck studios, actually. And the guy I think he was a scammer. So we were bankrupt in 2 years. I think he had a pyramid scheme going on. He helped invest in the CGI company that did Jurassic Park, and he made a fortune with that, but he blew it all. So we were back to nothing in no time. So that's why I don't see the investment as so consequential, because it was like a 3-year time of hemorrhaging cash, and it wasn't us running the show. It was DIY. It wasn't DIY anymore. And I liked when we went bankrupt because we moved to Brooklyn. We were in a warehouse of one of our clients, and it was back to the early Montreal days. And we rebuilt the company from scratch, and that would be 2002 around.
Still scam mindset at that time?
Still scam mindset? Yeah. Well, we were always hustlers. Like, I didn't like the original welfare scam. That was weird that we were on with the Haitians.
But that was kind of the portal through which everything somehow flowed. Sort of.
That's life in Montreal. Montreal is like, people think of it as just a boring Canadian town, but Montreal has got the most dangerous Hells Angels. The government is all basically Sicily. Like, it's the most corrupt government north of Reggio di Calabria. They run the ports because it's a big port, right?
Yeah.
So it's got, centuries of corruption in it. It's really old too. It's 400 years old. So, and they hate the English. So if you speak French there and they can detect an English accent, which is my French, you're not getting a job. If you speak English and you're terrible at it, you're getting a job. So there's a prejudice there. It's almost like apartheid. So to survive in Montreal or anywhere in Quebec as an Anglophone, you got to be a hustler. And I think that being unwanted in a province helped us thrive in New York because we were used to, just going by the seat of our pants.
Yeah, and that was like a tough scene to roll into in the late 90s. People were very sort of territorial about who they were and what neighborhoods they were theirs.
Yeah, well, especially Williamsburg. Yeah. So we left Manhattan, went to Williamsburg. That was like, I saw this Puerto Rican teenager just smash a guy in the back of the head with a golf club, and he was knocked unconscious. There was no bank machines at that time, and there was no cabs wouldn't go there. If you met a girl in the city and you're like, want to come back to my place in
Greenpoint,
she's like, no, that's as bad as Staten Island.
Yeah.
But we built it up, and I think we gentrified Williamsburg. We, writing the do's and don'ts. I'm taking pictures of people on the street, and then that starts becoming the hot spot. Then the gays move in, and they start renovating warehouses. Well, first it's the artists, because they need the warehouse space. Then the gays come in, and then the hipsters follow the gays. And then once the Asians are in, you're finished. It's
The whole
gentrified.
creative class life cycle
It's done.
has come and gone.
It's good. I like gentrification. And you talk to the Puerto Ricans there, and they're like, man, before you white people came here, like I couldn't walk my kids to school without getting mugged. We love you guys. Thank you for making this place
So do you
livable.
think that there's this is a cycle that's always going to continue, or is it burned out? I mean, like, technology's kind of just wiped the minds of so many, like, that hipster demographic, that things are different. People don't leave the house. They don't want to go out as much. They have the yoga mat under one arm. Like,
Yeah, I'm
is
really
it ever
worried
gonna,
about it.
Yeah.
Look at accents. Black people in Seattle used to talk like Jimi Hendrix. Hey, man, what's going on? I'm from Seattle, man. I'm just like a hippie dude. And now they talk like they're from the South Bronx because of the internet and social media. So we're not regional anymore. And I think you need regions to have culture, or else it's like this homogeneity.
Homogeneous.
Yeah. Like when I was young, you'd hear about this band. Oh, there's the Replacements. Oh, where are they from? Minneapolis, the Midwest. And then you in your brain, you go, oh, that's that Husker Du, Midwest scene with Die Cruz.
There was a sound. There was a sound for every region, at least sometimes more than one sound.
And I've noticed when I look up new bands today, it takes you like a few paragraphs to find out where they're from. It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, they're
And
from
I don't like
Bandcamp.
that. I think the New York accent is dying.
Yeah.
You hear some blue-collar dude from South Brooklyn who's like, yo, it's crazy. Look at my kid. You got to meet my kid. This guy's nuts. And he comes over and he goes, hi, how you doing? I'm his kid. And you're like, where's your accent, bro?
Gone. Yeah.
Homogenized.
It's like those European immigrants didn't want their kids to learn their language because they wanted them to be American.
Yeah.
And now it's turning to mush. You know Jacob Siegel at all?
Sounds
Tablet?
familiar. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like one of the last guys who like really talks like this. James, I don't understand it. And it's like almost shocking coming out of like
it's
a guy
really,
who's
I find
under
it really
60 or something.
charming.
Yeah,
And I
totally.
want to put them, freeze them in amber.
Yeah. Well, that's the temptation, is to like take the real culture and just sort of like abstract it and pot it and merchandise it. And I don't know if there's any escape from that. Maybe there is.
Culture needs to be balkanized. You need to have different groups that aren't friends. Don't be friends. Don't mix. There's too much. Like when you mix all the colors together, what do you get? You get diarrhea brown.
Yeah.
I'm like Mao. Let 1,000 flowers bloom.
1,000 petty enmities, keeping block by block on their own page. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. And I mean, I don't know. You're looking at like Twitter today or yesterday, whatever it was, and it's the Glendale Armenians versus Antifa.
That's my favorite thing in the
And
world.
there's some block to block street brawling for you.
Yeah, that's great. I love that too, because not that it's great culture, but I just love seeing the left cannibalize itself and get into bed with the wrong people. It's like when Kissinger was asked about the Iran-Iraq war, he said, ugh, can't they both lose? And when I see the Armenian Muslims arguing about LGBT and then the Antifa fighting them, I'm like, perfect. Go destroy each other.
Yeah, fortunately, Glendale's Armenians, Christians, but
yes.
Well, you got the Muslims in the UK
And in Canada.
and in Canada,
And
who
in
are sort of
Canada
like the
freaking out. Yeah.
last line of defense up there, which is sort of
Yeah,
shocking.
who knew
in its own right.
I'd be loving Muslims so much.
Yeah,
And Armenians.
Yeah. Is there going to be a new Vice ever then? Anything like it?
No, I was just talking about this earlier. Print is dead, but I think maybe print should be dead. Maybe the written word should die.
Okay.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
Go on.
Okay, so I'm looking up Mexican jumping beans, right?
Okay, this is good.
And I have the Wikipedia definition, because I was like, my kid was like, why do they jump? What is that about? And I go, I think there's like a larva in a bean, but I don't know what the bean. So there's the Wikipedia definition. It lists exactly what's going on. Boring, hard to figure out. I look up a YouTube video. I see the pods that the Mexican jumping beans are just larvae for a moth, but they chose this particular bean because it's got sharp edges on it, and they get in it, so they can't be eaten, and they seal themselves in. But the great thing about the sharp edges is when the sun is coming on them, they can move out of the way. And if they're round, they just roll down the hill, right? But the sharp edges, they can move up. So when the sun's here, they move into the shade. When the sun's there, they move out of the shade. I'm watching this on YouTube. I can see the larvae smash its head against the side of the bean to move over. I can see the bean. They show me a bunch of different experiments where they had like a block of ice and a heated pad, and how they would move back and forth depending on what the temperature was. When you move the ice, they moved, near it to get away from too much heat. And I'm like, that's way better than the written word. Or what about this? That show on HBO it wasn't Philip Seymour Hoffman. It was the other guy who's just like him, who was in that wine movie where they crash a car into a tree. What's his name? He looks like
the guy who looks like Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
He played. Anyway, he was doing a thing on John Adams, right? And it was
Giamatti?
Yeah, Giamatti, Paul Giamatti. That's it.
I was thinking of the other guy.
Yeah, they're the same. They're all the same guy. Fat, good actors. And
it's a type.
It's a type. And I'm watching the docu-series on HBO, and I'm like, I can see their buckled shoes. I can see the carts they're in. I can see what the women are wearing. I'm not using my imagination, really. But aren't I better off than reading this story? And they go, oh, no, it's good for your brain to use your imagination. I'd be imagining the wrong shoes. I just saw this on a movie, and now I have a much clearer perception of what it was like back then for John Adams.
Yeah. So, Vice print dead, long live Mexican jumping bean YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Got it.
I think the written word is dead.
Well, it's definitely dying.
I did a column for 15 years at Tacky Mag. I don't think more than 100 people, 200 people would read each article. I do a video on YouTube. It gets like tens of thousands of views.
Maybe it's just going back to being the bespoke product for the smartest, wisest people in the world. Sitting in their monasteries.
Yeah, I like them.
It down.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a meritocracy with YouTube. It's hard to argue with.
It's amazing that YouTube works so well and Google works like so poorly.
Yeah, something fishy's going on there.
Something very strange.
You look up like Jan 6, and after 3 pages, you've seen all the articles and they start repeating themselves. If you recall, around 2005, you could never get to the end of anything, let alone an insurrection.
Yeah. Well, that was like the whole gimmick. Like at the bottom, it was like Google.
Yeah.
And had like all the page numbers.
And you finish the mainstream things. Now do the blogs. Remember there was a separate blog Google? And you would look up a subject and it wouldn't be CNN. It would be what the blogs are saying. That's another 300 pages of information.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore. You can finish, you could probably finish Mexican jumping beans in like 4 pages.
Yeah. Google doesn't even have a page anymore. It's just sort of like an infinite scroll at this point with like modules. They're breaking it all down.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either.
It's fishy though.
It is.
This is the big question with everything that we're talking about is what percentage is incompetence and what percentage is some grand globalist scheme where they're using us like marionettes? And I'm constantly trying to figure that out.
Yeah, well, that's the disorienting thing. Is like it's just the boundary between reality and fantasy, or between what's an op and what's not, is just so permeable.
Yeah.
That
Are you stupid or evil? Because you're ruining my country.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Albanian by birth, left Albania, came to the US, got a job at Google. And he was like super excited because this was going to be like the apex of America. And he knew about America and he like watched the stuff and was familiar with the culture and came to the US and was excited to be in the US. And he gets to Google and he's like walking around. And he's like, where are all the Americans? He's like, these people they don't act like Americans. They don't talk like Americans. They don't think like Americans. They don't do things other Americans do. Like, what planet is this? What country is this?
And is that just cheap labor or is that a big plan? Every time you read about Twitter or Google or some big tech catastrophe, they're always like, well, Rajiv Shandar is out at Twitter and he'll be replaced by Rajiv Ningodong. Like, there's not one normal name in any big tech story.
Well, you got all the women of corporate America are still clinging to their normal names.
Yeah, but remember the head of Twitter's like information? She was on Joe Rogan a couple times. She's like Nadil Prakash or something.
True. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of these corporations, like they want someone sort of like palatable to be the face of the operation. OpenAI did this. They found personable Armenian to just like put out in front of the cameras.
I went to Google once for a pitch meeting. You had to sign a bunch of NDAs just to walk in the building. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I saw one black person in the entire building.
Yeah, well, they're failing.
That's probably why I have to sign NDAs.
Yeah, that's right. Probably so. busted. I want to talk about this. Like,
I guess I just violated the NDA.
It's done. It's over.
Whoops.
You've been served. At some point after you get your sort of sea legs in New York, the gentrification begins. The brand Vice starts to take on a sort of life of its own. Political categories a little sort of weirder than they are today, or more fluid. Did you realize that you were starting to become like something that people who would identify themselves as being firmly on the left were like really into?
Well, the beauty of life back then is Giuliani's New York was obviously very cleaned up, but it still had that sort of Joe Coleman dangerous element to it. And I don't mean that you're going to get stabbed. I mean that you could be right and left. Like this polarization is basically post-Trump. Back then, we had there's Tom Hazelmeyer over at Amphetamine Reptile Records. There was Johnny Ramone. There was Gangrene. There was lots of right-wing dudes. And, Tom Hazelmeyer named his daughter Reagan. And we would just be like, the lefties would just be like, that's that right-wing guy. Like, we weren't enemies. And in Vice, I had an article called The New Conservatives. I think it was 2002. And I was drastically changed by 9/11. And I read Pat Buchanan's Death of the West. And that made me care a lot more about politics. But we had, various races of people wearing patriotic clothing. And we were like, we're the new conservatives. We're Buchananites. We're isolationists and nationalists. And we love this country. And that, no one freaked out about that. That would get you canceled today. But I don't think I went to the right, really. I think everyone else went to the left.
Yeah. Who do you think is out there right now, sort of at the highest level, who's representing that constituency well?
The new right?
Well, sort of like the, I didn't move right, like everyone else moved left. The sort of, I remembers a time when things were a little bit more tightly woven together, and now everything seems to be.
I think John Doyle is a big brain on the right now. I think it's important to be young. Like Mark Levin, of course, is a genius. So is Mark Stein. But like, they're just wise old men that you climb up a mountain to, and they've got a long white beard, and they tell you some sage advice, and then you go back down the mountain. I don't think they have a lot of influence as far as like changing the culture. I think you got to be young for that. And John Doyle is great for that. I'm a Zionist. I'm not an anti-Semite, but I love Nick Fuentes, and I like arguing with him.
Zionist for Fuentes. You heard it here first.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like in politics, political figures. I mean, these people are probably inevitably going to be older. Not all of them. Do you like RFK? Like, do you see him as kind of picking up the?
Yeah, I hate to sound shallow,
banner?
but I don't think his voice is going to pass. I mean, you got to understand how shallow voters are. Yeah. They're mostly women. They voted for Barack Obama because he's cool and black. They voted for Justin Trudeau because he's handsome. They don't know. Not one woman who voted for Barack Obama or Justin Trudeau knows any of his policies.
Well, you only see these guys when you turn on the TV. You get sort of 30 seconds with them, and you want something that kind of looks.
You're a hunk. You're in. You've got a Native American tattoo, Justin Trudeau. You're in.
Does he?
Yes.
Where?
Here, and it's like the Northwest, like nothing to do with him.
Okay.
He's Quebec. It should be a Mohawk or something.
Wrong coast.
Ugh. No, he's the Zoolander prime minister. It's embarrassing, but his voice is, I don't know, man. Isn't that going to be a major problem?
It hasn't been a problem so far. He
sounds like he just finished a big cry.
Well, maybe he did. I mean, maybe the awful grace of God.
Besides that shallow thing, which don't sleep on shallow when ladies are involved. The 19th Amendment allowed shallow into the White House. But I love the anti-CIA stuff. The CIA killed my.
Is that a dig at Warren Harding? Is that what that was?
No, that was a dig at broads.
Okay.
I love his anti-FBI CIA stuff. I've heard some other weird stuff, like talking about these machines that can harness the energy of the universe and the cancer.
Yeah.
They don't want to cure cancer because it makes too much money.
Yeah.
It's a little too out there for me.
Yeah. I mean, the voice or whatever, like under normal circumstances might be like, oh, it didn't poll test well. But now anyone can be turned into a meme sort of without warning and sometimes without clear justification. And it's not hard for me to imagine that the voice would go from like a liability to some sort of
something
like,
cool. Yeah.
cool,
That happened with Trump.
It
I
did.
mean, his asshole behavior became something we loved.
And the voice, you gotta love the voice. So melodic.
Yeah.
You know, it just becomes a hallmark, and then people run with it.
And they called him Darth Vader, and then we were like, yeah, we like Darth Vader. That's
Yeah,
cool.
Good, actually.
So as far as people running for president, I love anyone that wants less government. Like, I'll take Ted Cruz, anyone. I obviously like Trump best, but DeSantis is great too. As far as young people in the new right scene, I love Ashley St. Clair and Elijah Schaffer and Sav, and I think it's a pretty exciting time for all these. Even Crowder, it doesn't like me, but I like that what he's doing.
Yeah, that is not a qualification. You do not need to be liked in order to like.
No, that's the best thing about being over 50.
Yeah.
Like, your feelings you don't really have them anymore. Like, if I see School of Rock, I'll bawl my eyes out because it's people overcoming adversity to win. And if I see a long distance commercial, I'll cry. But as far as like someone not liking you, you're just like, awesome, I like you.
Do you think Trump really has a chance? Do you think they're going to let him in?
Yes. I mean, they're going to
they
try
will,
to.
They will let him
This
in.
charge seems like a really big deal. I poo-pooed it at first, but the more I look into it, the bigger of a deal it seems. But we were just talking outside. I think you can run the country from prison. A felony doesn't mean
It's been done.
You can't vote.
You can run cartels from prison. You can run sort of corrupt cops from prison. You can run lots of stuff.
Yeah, you get a half-hour call before the voiceover comes in and tells you to call back.
Orange man, orange suit. It's a meme waiting to happen. No inklings at the time when Trump was just like the big man in New York City when you were there. Did you ever sort of see something in him that you thought would evolve into
I
what
picked
it is
him out
now?
right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I was with Ted Cruz for a second, and then when I saw him talking, I was like, this guy's going to win. And everyone at Fox, I was doing Red Eye a lot and other hits, Sean Hannity and stuff, and Kennedy. And they were always like, your man just tanked himself. Your man they would always say that. It's like that everyone at Fox wanted him to die.
Yeah. Howard Stern, it's all going down.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, he's done now. And I'm like, no, he's not. This is good for him. Stormy Daniels, there was another catastrophe every month that they thought would end him. But this is why we need someone like Trump. Ted Cruz is too nice. That's why I'm talking about dumb things like The Voice, because I know we're dealing with dumb voters. And Trump is a pit bull. He doesn't let you get away with anything, and that's what you need. The left are they're worse than spoiled brats. They're crazy ex-girlfriends. And they're literally smashing windows of random businesses, screaming their heads off about, I don't know, some fentanyl junkie who died. And they think it's indicative of some sort of racist cop pattern, so they burn down America. You need someone with balls. And Donald Trump, when he was a young man, he was in the South Bronx collecting rent from miscreants and criminals and, risking his life. He's a tough cookie, and that's what we need.
Yeah, and he looks better now than he did 4 years ago.
You know what? You know why Jews are so successful?
Tell me.
Because they're whites who don't drink.
That's
Yes.
Wow.
Donald
It's that
Trump-
simple, folks.
Whites have incredible potential, but they kill it with booze. And
That was Friedrich Nietzsche's position. Actually,
Really?
As well. He hated beer, the poison of Europe. Like people just, he was very.
I would probably
very
be
down
president
on
right
booze.
now if I didn't drink so much.
Yeah. Well, there's still time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drunk now. I was drinking
Perfect.
the whole way here.
Okay, and your voice sounds great.
It does. Well, that's what happens with booze. You get that cool rasp at the back. But no, Trump has never drank because his brother was a severe alcoholic. And he's a driven guy. He's an alpha male. And I don't get why people hate him so much, really. I think my theory is that it was the tyranny of the nerds in the 90s with indie rock. And, when I was younger, it was Square Pegs and Zit Remedy and the Vomits, whatever they're called, Degrassi Junior High.
Yeah.
And
Owl City.
Yeah, we grew up with movies like 16 Candles where the alpha male with the blonde hair is the evil date rapist guy, and Ducky with the little turned up hat and the yellow Converse, he's the cool guy. And that was the norm. And then the nerds started like changing our curriculum because they got older and they became lawyers and judges. And now the whole culture was Ducky. And Trump came along and went, no, we're going back to the jocks. We're going back to mullets and wraparound sunglasses and jet skis.
Okay, so you have a definition for hipster. So do you have a definition for nerd?
A nerd? So nerds and geeks are different,
Yeah, very different.
right?
Yeah.
Geeks can be any age, and they're just someone who's obsessed with, say, Star Trek or something like Star Wars or something. Nerds have high IQs. They're probably on the spectrum. They can't really look you in the eyes, and they invent everything in this room.
So nerds are like the numbers people, and the geeks are like the arts people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And geeks are losers.
Well, especially in a time when technology is eating the world, it's like that's really good for nerds. It's like
Yeah,
really,
if you're
really bad
if
for
you're
geeks.
playing video games at my age or you're collecting action figures, you should just kill yourself.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, a lot of what seems to be animating like wokeness or whatever is just like instead of Revenge of the Nerds, like Revenge of the Theater Kids. You know, like
Yeah.
diminishing
Fat,
prospects,
ugly
like bots replacing
video
you.
game
Like, what do you do?
doofuses. It started with video games. I think the trans thing started with video games.
Okay, I'm here for this theory.
You're playing a video game as a woman for 6 hours. You're a woman now in your mind. Like, I've heard dumb excuses with Fortnite where they go, no, I like being a woman because I'm thinner, so bullets hit me
The
less.
hitbox, bro. It's narrower, bro.
No, the box is, I'm guessing it's a wireframe. It's the same for everyone, right? And I saw this other game my coworker was playing where he's some chick running through like dinosaur times in like a sexy loincloth and stuff with a great ass.
It's the stats, bro. It's better stats.
I'm like, dude, you're a chick. When I was a kid and you're playing Street Fighter, if you chose, what's her name, Chin Ling, people would look at you like you just ordered a Bud Light. Like it's just not done.
Well, you can also just like spam the lightning kick and like back the opponent into the corner. I still haven't
That
figured out
upside down
how
spinny
to,
thing.
Yeah, dude, no, just horrible.
You know how you do the
Flashbacks.
Hadouken? You go down, you scoop it like a horseshoe, and then hit it.
Yes,
Yeah.
spoken like a true man who hates video games.
Well, I bought Street Fighter for my kids. It's in the basement.
It's a classic. It's in the basement where these filthy things belong. So there's like pivot happening to continue with the Vice narrative. The lefties are sort of embracing, but they're not really lefties like they used to be. And then you start getting like these other corporations climbing into the game. You start getting the Buzzfeeds, you start getting like the HuffPost Live. Like I did a tour of duty there. So it was like the guy who wasn't like the others, and you know, Ariana just like breezing in sometimes and then breezing out, and that thing started to go down. She totally just like walked, you know, just cashed out, became like, I don't know if she was like setting up napping pods at Uber or whatever her job became, but just like the way that kind of scene became a sort of industrial product in its own right that was like pumped and dumped. It was really just like horrifying to watch it unfold.
Well, they eschew meritocracy. Our job as media dudes is to have a new take on something. And all those places you just listed was the same woke garbage.
Can we do white? Does it even mean anything anymore? It's just,
I got
just
a crazy
blank?
definition of white.
Okay, good. Let's go.
You ready for this? 93% of America is white.
Writing this down. 93. Okay, how's that pencil out? Everyone's white, but
There's a certain, like, you can complain about racism if you're black and below middle class. So that's 7% of America, I would say. Poor and black is 7% of America. Everyone else, no one cares if they move in next door. Asians, Lebanese, like you have these Peruvians talking about living in America as a minority. You're like, what are you talking about? Does anyone get mad when an Asian moves in next door? They're white.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is a source of controversy because, like, you know, in states like California, where if you're too Asian, you sort of lose your privileges, like affirmative action, forget about it, quotas, no, like you don't even get treated always as a quote unquote minority. And there's this phrase white adjacent that they like to use.
Yeah, I
and
call
it seems
that
like
white.
Seems like you're saying white adjacent means you are living
You're white.
adjacent to a white person. And
I
they
want,
think
like
of
with
you as the
abortion,
same.
I only want to talk about the 23 weeks. I want to get the argument away from 9 months, which it's at now in New York and Canada and all over the place. I want to get it down to viability outside the womb. And with racism, I want to get it down to poor blacks. So let's talk about if they suffer, if they're, and I don't believe they are. I don't believe in racism in America in 2023, post 1970. I don't believe in it. It doesn't exist. But, or to any consequential level. But I'm definitely not listening to a Japanese American talk about racism. I'm not listening to any Hispanics talk about racism. If we can just get it down to poor blacks, are they experiencing prejudice? Are they experiencing prejudice? Everyone else lives the same life as whites. So I don't think they are, but I'm open to discussing it with that little ball of 7%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Do you think people feel like that's true, but it's also like life is getting worse for everyone? So like, yeah, everyone's kind of becoming white, but also like white is becoming like worse downwardly mobile, like less prestige, like more problems, drug abuse, like all that.
Well, the problem with all these, like we always had woke, we always had these radical blue-haired lesbians, but they had no power. Now they're judges. Now they're mainstream. And what do? They do affirmative action. And we saw what affirmative action did to South Africa. It's an absolute war zone. And you look at Eric Adams' cabinet, like he just hired his sister-in-law. He hired his brother as head of Not Racism. He's hiring some chick who rented him a room 10 years ago. She's handling all the police pensions. She has no clue what she's doing.
Populism.
Yeah, like the number of black female judges in America now are like 5 times what they are in the population. It's not good for meritocracy. So I think that one of the biggest problems in America right now is this hatred of meritocracy. And it's based on the assumption that there was all these qualified black female judges, and we were like, not on my watch, boy. I know she graduated alma cum laude or whatever you call it, but I ain't having no black judges on my watch. And then we finally opened the floodgates, and the American Indian astronauts can finally get the job that they've deserved all this time. It's the opposite of the truth.
Are you worried that like all the planes are going to crash when the
They
current
are,
generation?
dude.
Okay, yeah,
They are.
already happening.
A woman just got sucked up into an engine because she was stoned, and they told her 100 times, don't go near those engines. Blood all over the tarmac. We got 2 guys were killed on a bridge at an Austin airport. We just had that Southwest and the FedEx planes almost collide into each other. We had a plane coming into, I think it was Honolulu. It plummeted towards the water.
It's like 500 feet, I think.
Yeah, wrench itself out. There was no record of talking to air traffic controllers.
Or any of the passengers, right? They're like,
Yeah,
here's an NDA for those
not
guys.
Not recorded. It wasn't a
Right.
big deal. And you
No.
look at the graph and it was like, meow, whoa. And you
Oops.
talk to air traffic controllers and they're like, yeah, the old fuddy-duddies are leaving, and they're looking behind them going, you guys don't know how to do this job. Even the mechanics of the planes is affirmative action now, and they're bringing in Hispanic and other people to do these things where a thousandth of an inch is of the utmost crucial importance, and it's off. And there's a can of Modelo lying next to it.
The world
We've
needs
reached
nerds.
idiocracy in the skies.
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
need the nerds to keep these things going. I mean, like we've got issues where it's becoming harder to like maintain our nuclear arsenal. Like
Yes.
all these kinds of things about how to actually mix the ingredients right, so it's like stable but still fissile, and like I don't know.
Oh, they
knowledge
can't
is being
find
lost.
airplane mechanics. They don't exist anymore. They're bringing in guys who are like 80 years old and say, we'll take you to the airport in a limousine and we'll pay you $500 an hour. And it's like, I'm 90 years old, man. I don't care about your planes no more. I talk in a transatlantic accent is how old I am.
Yeah, that is old. There's the last regional dialects, maybe. Tell me about your stuff. Tell me about Get Off My Lawn. Are they getting off your lawn? You censored TV. Is censored? How's it fit together?
The get off my lawn mentality I have is like, I was at the airport today and I'm seeing Crocs everywhere and flip-flops and men's toes. And I feel like a curmudgeon from 1950 who traveled here and doesn't even understand. Like, I don't understand half the looks. These eyelashes that come out 6 inches from your face, I'm not annoyed. I'm confused. Do you know how that you look exactly like a clown?
Seems like a real drag.
But it's a little pirate ship I built. It was really hard. We had to do all kinds of fancy paperwork because I can't bank and I'm canceled. We can't advertise. We've been hacked a bunch of times. I had to change the URL from freespeech.tv to censored.tv. They're really out to get me, man.
But you're not going to let that happen.
No, and I'm in the Knights of Columbus, and it's all old dudes, and they're always like, I'm glad I'm on the back. Wait, I don't know why I'm doing a Southern accent. They're like, I'm glad I'm on the back 9. You and your kids, America's done. You're fucked. Your kids, they're really fucked. And my dad just yesterday was like, I'm glad I'm on the back 9. I'm not going to be here for too long, and I'm happy about that because you. And I'm like, Dad, we fought the English for 300 years. America, the Brits, the white trash fought the Indians for 300 years, and we won.
So you think this is like a long fight?
Oh, yeah.
Centuries?
If I was a
how long is
Boer
this
in
gonna
South
go?
Africa, I'd
Yeah.
still be fighting the good fight. You know, you have to die with your boots on. I end every show with, I go, get fired, get in trouble, be brave, and never stop fighting.
And if you are a man wearing Crocs, you will not die with
You're
your
not a
boots
man.
on.
You're not registered.
You think a candidate could win election on a no man toes platform?
Yes, they did. There was an African dictator who hated flip-flops so much that the military would make you eat your flip-flop at gunpoint. I want him to run.
That is
I hope he's still alive.
visionary leadership opposing the flip-flop in Africa.
We can talk if you're washing your car or you're a chef and you change into shoes after your shift. I'm open to discussing that. But wearing Crocs, walking around, what is going on?
It's like dressing like a nurse outside of the hospital.
I bet they stink too. Everyone thinks that these Teva sports sandals or whatever, your feet breathe. No, you still stink. Like I saw a guy wearing flip-flops the other day. I was at a meeting with him, actually, to be specific. He took off his flip-flop. Okay, you want to hear the gossip? We were at Bret Easton Ellis's office, and we came by to say hi. There was no chairs, so my friend sat on the floor. He's wearing flip-flops. I was like, why the fuck are you wearing those? Meeting Bret Easton Ellis here. He takes off his flip-flop and wipes it on the rug because his foot is sweaty, and then puts it back. I clocked it, and I saw Brett clock it. And when we were leaving, I'm like, thanks for wiping your sweaty foot on his fucking rug.
That's really gross. You can smell bad and look bad doing it. I've known Brett for a number of years, and he's now in his hoodie era, which is like a lot different from where he was in 87 or 88, but still no Crocs and no flip-flops.
Yeah, I was at his house, at his office. He's wearing shoes, well-dressed guy, put together. I mean, it's like people come home in their jeans and then change out of their jeans to put on their basketball shorts. Cotton twill is uncomfortable. This suit is tailor-made. It's more comfortable than PJs.
It's a great suit. It looks great.
I'm
sure Brett would appreciate your suit.
Well, I'll send this to him.
If not Patrick Bateman. I like his voice. I've always liked his voice.
Yeah.
It's like really just a sort of like a
But I was re-looking at American Psycho recently.
Yeah.
You can tell it's written by a homo. Like the whole face thing, the creams and everything. I'm like,
metrosexual.
Yeah, metrosexuals don't really have a 9-step plan for maintaining their facial skin.
Well, I mean, that's sort of the line between metrosexuality and psychopathy. I mean, this was sort of like J.G. Ballard's terrain, right? Where it was sort of like at the end of it all, people become so mannered that they just sort of like, there's nothing left to do.
Become inhuman.
But to become a sort of like, an affectless
I think we have the opposite problem.
Psychopath.
People are too human.
Yeah, okay.
Lounging around, picking their toes on the train.
Revealing warts and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a little shyer, America.
Well, it's tough because like we want to actually preserve our humanity from just being totally turned into like, avatars on the screen.
Now, I want to get back to the greatest generation. If you asked my grandfather, your grandfather, how are you? He'd be like, what? You don't have a self. You work hard for your family. You read the newspaper after a hard day at the docks. You don't go, I'm depressed. I'm happy. I want to get a toupee and listen to jazz and get a convertible. That was the boomers.
Do we have the jobs, though, that can sustain that kind of civilization anymore?
What are you saying? That we should just have unemployed people?
Oh, I'm saying like, all these jobs have been sort of transformed out. I mean, yeah, you still have like dock workers, I guess, but that's all being automated. And you got to have like a certain kind of working man in order to have that kind of society.
There's always jobs. I mean, why are we importing the third world to the tune of millions if there's no jobs? You know what we should do? A global civil suit against China for COVID. Italy, Germany, us, everyone sues China. They say, we don't have that much money. You just asked for 30 trillion. And we go, okay, well, we're erasing our debt. And they go, no, you're not. You owe us money. And we go, no, we don't. Okay, fine. We're not making any more of your plastic crap. And we go, good. I'm going to get some WD-40, spray it on the Rust Belt, and get those factories. We'll make our own plastic crap. Thank you very much. And wall off China. Bye-bye. Home to mommy.
Yeah, got to get rid of the Chinese drugs probably in order to get the Rust Belt moving again.
Good.
Yeah. How do you do that, though? Do you want to go to war with the cartels? Do you like that sort of like these rumblings? Like, we're just going to go down
Yeah.
there?
I look at the El Salvador. He's got them running in perfect unison. They look like army ants.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you do it, do you think?
Murder.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cold-blooded.
Gangsters don't walk in perfect single file if you haven't killed 4 of them.
Yeah.
We need to kill everyone who sells fentanyl. That should just be murder right out of the gate.
Sometimes they don't even know it.
Okay, then we won't kill that guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing with the Coke thing, where it's like you used to have all these guys who would just never grow up and just always do blow. And like, I mean, I think it was just a couple of years ago now that like, two girls, I think they were high school girls, just sort of just night out in the valley and just dead because it was.
Yeah, remember those comedians? They died too. Yeah. If anyone offers you a bump now, you go, Why don't you have a bump and I'll just wait a little while.
You have a royal taster.
Yeah. And then an hour goes by and you're like, can I get that toot?
Yeah.
No, it's all gone.
I don't know. I think it seems like the party's over. It's all weed now. It's all like super narcotized.
I don't think young people have ruined everything for themselves. Like they ruined sex by ODing on porn. So I don't think they fornicate much anymore. If they do, it's like anal or some crazy over the top thing where she doesn't want to do it again. They don't drink. They don't go to bars. Talk to a FDMY guy or any fireman in the country. They're ripping out the bars and replacing them with big screens for their Xbox. Remember in Animal House where they were emptying the frat because it was over, and John Belushi's crying, and then what's his name throws him a bottle of Jack and he chugs it. That's how I feel with Western civilization. I'm going when they drop the whiskey and it smashes on the pavement.
It is sad, but maybe we can end on this note. You got the kids. The kids are not all right. Is there like a way that you can like reach that audience? Can you serve them content?
I did. I think,
but like now, like
I think Ashley St. Clair, John Doyle, Nick Fuentes, Elijah Schaefer.
You think they're getting through?
I red pilled them. They're my children. I'm responsible for that.
Your spiritual children.
Yes, they walk among us.
Yeah.
And they're better than me. That's the great thing about culture and spawning things is that you stand on the shoulders of giants and then do a better job.
Are they going young enough?
What do you mean?
Like, how early do you have to like catch a kid these days in order to stop them from?
I'm glad you asked me that because with my daughter, I said, I'm not going to get involved.
How old?
She's 16. I got 16, 14, and 10. Girl, boy. That's the bare minimum. You need at least 3 kids. But with her, I just said, go your own way. And if you wanted to talk about politics, I'm here. And she ended up like hating Trump and stuff because you create a vacuum when you do that. And then with the 14-year-old around 13, I was like, this is woke, this is garbage. And I think I may have saved him. But with the 10-year-old, he's like, yeah, the new Spider-Man was really good. It was woke, but it was all right. Like you don't not red pill kids because you don't want kids to do politics. Because I did that and it doesn't work. Someone else gets in there. You need to start at the age of 9.
There you go. The future of media starts at age 9. I see 0 hours and 0 minutes on the clock. That means it is literally all the time we have, at least until next time around. If you found this conversation meaningful, please consider becoming a Blaze TV subscriber to help us create more content just like this. Go to blazetv.com and use the code 0hour20 for $20 off your first year of Blaze TV. That was Gavin McInnes. This is 0 Hour. I'm James Poulos. May God have mercy on our souls.